The emergency alert crackled through the radio at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that would change everything. 3 explosive devices had been discovered in the downtown financial district, each more sophisticated than anything the Metropolitan Police Bomb Squad had encountered in recent memory. The lives of thousands hung in the balance, and the clock was already ticking toward a coordinated detonation that would level 3 city blocks. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. What happened next would defy every expectation, challenge every assumption, and prove that sometimes the most unlikely heroes emerge from the most ordinary places. This is the story of how one woman's quiet determination and hidden expertise turned a potential catastrophe into a masterclass in precision under pressure. Sarah Martinez pressed her badge against the security scanner and felt the familiar flutter of nervous energy that had accompanied her to work every day for the past 2 weeks. The Metropolitan Police Department's bomb disposal unit occupied a fortress-like building on the outskirts of downtown, its concrete walls and reinforced windows speaking to the deadly serious nature of the work conducted within. At 34, Sarah looked every inch the civilian contractor she was supposed to be, her slight frame and understated appearance making her nearly invisible among the towering presence of the tactical officers who dominated the hallways. Her security clearance had come through channels that surprised even her. After 8 years working as a quality control inspector at a defense contractor, meticulously examining the internal components of various military devices, Sarah had developed an almost supernatural ability to understand the intricate relationships between wires, circuits, and explosive materials. Her job had required her to identify potential failures in complex systems, to spot the one misplaced connection that could mean the difference between reliable operation and catastrophic malfunction. The opportunity to join the bomb squad had arrived through an unconventional recruitment program, one designed to identify individuals with specialized technical skills who might not fit the traditional law enforcement mold. Sarah's supervisor at the defense contractor had recommended her after witnessing her ability to diagnose problems in systems that had stumped teams of engineers. Her uncanny knack for visualizing 3-dimensional circuit layouts and predicting failure points had made her invaluable in her previous role, though she had never imagined those skills might translate to something as high stakes as explosive ordnance disposal. The morning briefing room buzzed with the low murmur of conversation as Sarah slipped through the door and found an empty chair near the back. The space was filled with the kind of men she had grown accustomed to working around, their broad shoulders and confident postures marking them as career law enforcement officers. Their gear was pristine, their uniforms crisp, and their conversation peppered with the casual bravado that came from years of facing danger as a routine part of the job. Detective Mike Thompson, the unit's commanding officer, stood at the front of the room with the bearing of someone who had earned his position through decades of field experience. His graying hair and weathered face told the story of countless high-pressure situations, and his reputation for maintaining perfect operational safety records was legendary throughout the department. Behind him, charts and diagrams covered the whiteboard, displaying the various types of explosive devices the unit might encounter and the protocols for dealing with each. Sarah pulled out her notebook, the same spiral-bound pad she had used for years to track her observations and thoughts. While the other officers relied on tablets and digital devices, she found that the physical act of writing helped her process complex information more effectively. Her handwriting was small and precise, each letter carefully formed, reflecting the attention to detail that had made her so valuable in her previous career. The conversations around her gradually penetrated her concentration. Officer Jake Rodriguez, a 10-year veteran with arms that strained against his uniform sleeves, was regaling his colleagues with stories from his previous assignment. His voice carried the easy confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the room, and his anecdotes about high-pressure situations were met with knowing nods and appreciative chuckles from his audience. Seated 2 rows ahead, Officer Lisa Chang was reviewing technical manuals with the focused intensity that had made her one of the unit's most respected technicians. Her expertise in electronic systems was well established, and she had developed several innovative approaches to disarming complex devices that had been adopted as standard procedures throughout the department. Despite being one of only 3 women in the unit, she had earned her position through exceptional performance and commanded genuine respect from her male colleagues. Sarah found herself studying the group dynamics with the same analytical approach she brought to mechanical systems. The officers had clearly worked together for years, their interactions marked by the easy familiarity that comes from shared experiences and mutual trust. They spoke in shorthand, referencing previous cases, and inside jokes that excluded newcomers like herself. Their gear was worn smooth from use, their movements economical and practiced, and their discussions revealed a deep understanding of the life-and-death nature of their work. The morning light filtering through the reinforced windows cast long shadows across the room, highlighting the tension that always accompanied the start of a new shift. Every officer present knew that any routine day could suddenly transform into a crisis requiring split-second decisions and flawless execution. The weight of that responsibility was visible in their serious expressions and the careful way they checked and rechecked their equipment. Detective Thompson cleared his throat and called the room to attention. The casual conversations died away immediately, replaced by the focused silence of professionals preparing for their briefing. Sarah straightened in her chair, her notebook ready, as the commanding officer began reviewing the day's assignments and potential threats. The intelligence reports were routine, mostly involving suspicious packages that had turned out to be false alarms and scheduled training exercises designed to keep the unit's skills sharp. Sarah listened carefully, trying to absorb not just the factual information, but the subtle nuances in how the officers discussed different types of threats. Their experience had taught them to read between the lines of intelligence reports, to identify the small details that might indicate a genuine threat versus a harmless misunderstanding. As the briefing continued, Sarah became aware of the glances being directed her way. They were not hostile exactly, but they carried a weight of curiosity and skepticism that made her acutely conscious of her outsider status. She was the new person, the unknown quantity, the civilian contractor who had somehow earned a place in their specialized world without following the traditional path of law enforcement training and field experience. Officer Rodriguez leaned over to whisper something to his partner, and Sarah caught the phrase, "paper pusher," before they both glanced in her direction. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The comments stung, though she kept her expression neutral. She had expected this kind of reception, had prepared herself for the challenge of proving her worth to a group of hardened professionals who measured competence in terms of operational experience rather than theoretical knowledge. The truth was that Sarah's background was far more complex than her mild appearance suggested. Her years at the defense contractor had exposed her to cutting-edge explosive technology, advanced detonation systems, and the increasingly sophisticated methods used by hostile actors to create devastating weapons. She had spent countless hours studying failure analyses, examining the remains of devices that had malfunctioned, and developing an intuitive understanding of how different components interacted under extreme stress. Her security clearance had required extensive background checks and psychological evaluations, processes that had revealed her exceptional ability to remain calm under pressure and make accurate decisions when faced with incomplete information. The evaluators had been particularly impressed by her spatial reasoning skills and her capacity to visualize complex three-dimensional relationships, abilities that were crucial for understanding the internal architecture of sophisticated explosive devices. But none of that mattered in this room filled with officers who had earned their positions through years of dangerous fieldwork. Sarah understood that she would need to prove herself through performance rather than credentials, and the prospect both excited and terrified her. The stakes in this job were immeasurably higher than anything she had encountered in her previous career, where a mistake might mean a failed inspection rather than lost lives. Detective Thompson concluded the briefing with assignments for the day. Most of the officers would be conducting routine patrols and training exercises, while others would be following up on intelligence reports about potential threats. Sarah found herself assigned to Shadow Officer Chang, an arrangement that would allow her to observe experienced procedures while beginning to contribute to the unit's operations. As the meeting dispersed, Sarah gathered her materials and prepared to follow Officer Chang to their assigned patrol area. The other officers filed out in small groups, their conversations resuming as they headed toward the equipment lockers to prepare for their shifts. The easy camaraderie that had been briefly suspended during the formal briefing returned, though Sarah noticed that several officers continued to glance in her direction with expressions she couldn't quite read. Officer Chang waited for Sarah near the door, her expression professionally neutral. She was a compact woman in her early 30s, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation style that emphasized her serious demeanor. Her equipment was meticulously organized, each piece of gear positioned for optimal accessibility, and her movements had the economical precision of someone who had learned to eliminate wasted motion in high-stress situations. "Ready?" Officer Chang asked, her voice carrying the clipped efficiency that characterized most of her interactions. She had a reputation for being demanding but fair, someone who expected excellence from herself and others, but was willing to provide guidance to those who demonstrated genuine commitment to learning. Sarah nodded, slinging her bag over her shoulder and following Officer Chang toward the equipment area. The hallways of the building were lined with photographs of past operations, commendations, and memorial plaques honoring officers who had made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. The visual reminders of the job's dangers were sobering, reinforcing the gravity of the work they were preparing to undertake. The equipment lockers occupied a large room adjacent to the briefing area, their metal doors bearing the names and badge numbers of the officers assigned to each section. Sarah had been provided with basic protective gear, though she lacked the specialized tools and devices that the experienced officers carried. Her temporary status as a civilian contractor meant that she would be observing rather than directly handling potentially dangerous materials, at least until she completed the extensive training and certification process required for full operational duties. Officer Chang's locker was a model of organization, with each piece of equipment positioned according to a system that allowed for rapid deployment under stress. Her bomb suit hung on a specialized rack, its bulky armor designed to provide protection against explosive blasts while allowing sufficient mobility for delicate manipulations. The suit's helmet was equipped with advanced communication systems and heads-up displays that could provide real-time information about device characteristics and environmental conditions. Sarah watched as Officer Chang methodically checked each piece of equipment, a ritual that had clearly been repeated thousands of times. Every tool was examined for proper function, every connection tested for reliability, every component verified against a mental checklist developed through years of experience. The process was hypnotic in its thoroughness, and Sarah found herself appreciating the absolute precision required for work where equipment failure could mean immediate death. The radio crackled to life, interrupting the quiet preparation with an urgent message that made everyone in the equipment room freeze. Detective Thompson's voice cut through the static, tense and commanding. "All units, we have a code red situation downtown. Multiple devices detected in the financial district. This is not a drill." The transformation in the room was immediate and dramatic. Officers who had been engaged in routine preparation suddenly shifted into high alert mode, their movements becoming rapid and focused. Conversations stopped, replaced by the efficient exchange of critical information and the sound of equipment being hastily assembled. Sarah felt her heart rate spike as she realized that her first real exposure to the bomb squad's work would involve a genuine emergency rather than a training exercise. Officer Chang turned to Sarah with an expression that had shifted from professional courtesy to intense seriousness. "Stay close, follow orders exactly, and don't touch anything unless specifically instructed," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had navigated countless dangerous situations. "This is the real thing." The rush to the vehicles was controlled chaos, with each officer moving with practiced efficiency toward their assigned positions. Sarah found herself in the passenger seat of Officer Chang's specialized response vehicle, surrounded by equipment she didn't recognize, and communication systems that crackled with urgent updates from the scene. The vehicle's engine roared to life, and they joined the convoy of emergency responders racing toward downtown. As they sped through the city streets, Sarah caught glimpses of the evacuation already underway. Police barriers had been erected at key intersections, and crowds of civilians were being directed away from the affected area. The scope of the emergency was becoming clear, with multiple city blocks being cleared and traffic being rerouted to avoid the potential blast zone. The radio provided a constant stream of updates that painted an increasingly complex picture of the threat they were facing. 3 devices had been discovered in separate locations, each apparently more sophisticated than typical improvised explosives. The preliminary assessment suggested a coordinated attack designed to maximize casualties and property damage, with the devices positioned to create a cascading effect that would amplify the destruction. Sarah found herself analyzing the tactical situation with the same systematic approach she had applied to mechanical problems in her previous career. The positioning of the devices, the timing of their discovery, and the sophistication of their construction all suggested a level of planning and expertise that went far beyond the capabilities of amateur bomb makers. This was the work of professionals, and it would require an equally professional response to prevent a catastrophe. The convoy arrived at the command post that had been established 6 blocks away from the nearest device. The area bustled with activity as representatives from multiple agencies coordinated their response efforts. FBI agents worked alongside local police, while representatives from the fire department and emergency medical services prepared for various possible scenarios. The atmosphere was tense but controlled, with each agency contributing their specialized expertise to the overall response plan. Sarah followed Officer Chang toward the command vehicle, a mobile operations center equipped with advanced communication systems and real-time monitoring capabilities. Detective Thompson stood at the center of the activity, coordinating with federal authorities and reviewing the intelligence that continued to flow in from the scene. His expression was grim, reflecting the severity of the situation and the limited time available for developing an effective response. The first device had been discovered in the lobby of a major bank, concealed within what appeared to be a routine maintenance equipment box. The building's security cameras had captured images of the suspicious package, and the preliminary analysis suggested a sophisticated design that incorporated multiple trigger mechanisms and anti-tamper devices. The complexity of the construction indicated that disarming it would require exceptional skill and careful planning. The second device was located in the underground parking garage of a high-rise office building, positioned to maximize structural damage and potentially cause a catastrophic collapse. The confined space would make access difficult, and the device's proximity to the building's support columns suggested that even a controlled detonation might result in significant casualties and property damage. The third device presented the most challenging scenario. It had been discovered in a subway station during the morning rush hour, hidden within a maintenance alcove that provided access to critical infrastructure systems. The location not only put hundreds of commuters at risk, but also threatened to disrupt the entire transportation network for the metropolitan area. Sarah listened to the briefings with growing fascination and concern. Each device represented a different type of challenge, requiring specialized approaches and equipment. The coordination required to address all three simultaneously would push the bomb squad to the limits of their capabilities, and the margin for error was essentially non-existent. Detective Thompson assigned teams to each location with the most EXPERIENCED officers, taking responsibility for the most dangerous devices. Officer Chang would be leading the team addressing the bank location, while other senior officers would handle the parking garage and subway station. Sarah found herself assigned to observe the bank operation, a decision that would place her at the center of one of the most complex bomb disposal operations in the city's history. As the teams prepared to deploy, Sarah noticed the subtle changes in the officers' demeanor. The casual banter that had characterized the morning briefing was replaced by focused concentration and careful attention to detail. Every piece of equipment was checked multiple times, every communication protocol verified, and every possible contingency discussed and planned for. The weight of responsibility was palpable as the teams prepared to enter the danger zone. Sarah realized that she was about to witness the ultimate test of the skills and training that these officers had developed over years of dedicated service. The stakes could not be higher, and the consequences of failure would be measured in human lives, rather than administrative statistics. Officer Chang approached Sarah with a spare communication headset and a basic protective vest. "You'll be monitoring from the command post," she explained, her voice steady despite the tension of the situation. "But I want you to pay attention to everything you hear and see. You might notice something that we miss." The comment surprised Sarah, who had expected to be relegated to purely passive observation. The suggestion that her perspective might contribute to the operation was both flattering and terrifying, given the life-and-death nature of the decisions being made. She accepted the equipment with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension, understanding that she was being offered a level of trust that she had not yet earned. The teams moved out with military precision, each group following carefully planned routes that would minimize exposure to potential blast effects. Sarah watched from the command post as the officers disappeared into the evacuated buildings, their progress tracked through GPS systems and constant radio communication. The screens around her displayed feeds from various cameras and sensors, providing real-time information about the devices and the environment surrounding them. The first reports from the teams confirmed the preliminary assessments. Each device was indeed sophisticated, incorporating multiple layers of protection and trigger mechanisms that would require careful analysis and methodical disarming procedures. The complexity of the construction suggested that the bomb makers had anticipated standard disposal techniques and had designed their devices specifically to defeat conventional approaches. Sarah found herself drawn into the technical discussions as the teams relayed their observations back to the command post. Her background in analyzing complex mechanical systems gave her insights into the devices, construction that complemented the officer's field experience. She began to see patterns in the designs that suggested common origins or shared techniques, information that could be crucial for developing effective disarming strategies. The radio crackled with Officer Chang's voice as she provided her initial assessment of the bank device. The sophistication of the construction was beyond anything she had encountered in her previous operations, incorporating elements that suggested military-grade expertise and access to advanced materials. The device appeared to have multiple redundant trigger systems, making it extremely difficult to disarm through conventional methods. As Sarah listened to the technical descriptions, she began to visualize the device's internal architecture. Her years of examining similar systems had taught her to think in three-dimensional terms, to understand how different components interacted and where potential vulnerabilities might exist. The complexity that was intimidating the experienced officers was, to her, simply another engineering challenge requiring systematic analysis and careful planning. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky as the teams continued their dangerous work, each passing minute bringing them closer to the moment when decisive action would be required. Sarah found herself completely absorbed in the operation, her analytical mind working to process the constant stream of information and identify patterns that might prove crucial to the mission's success. The transformation from routine patrol day to life-and-death emergency had happened so quickly that Sarah barely had time to process the magnitude of what was unfolding. She was about to witness the ultimate test of the bomb squad's capabilities, and her own untested skills might play a crucial role in determining whether the day ended in triumph or tragedy. The radio communications grew more urgent as the teams reported their findings, and Sarah realized that the real challenge was just beginning. The devices were even more sophisticated than initially suspected, and the standard procedures that had served the bomb squad well in the past might not be sufficient for this unprecedented threat. As she listened to the increasingly complex technical discussions, Sarah felt a familiar sensation, the same mental clarity that had always accompanied her most challenging problem-solving situations. Despite the enormity of the stakes and the unfamiliar environment, she found herself beginning to see solutions where others saw only obstacles. The morning that had begun with routine briefings and equipment checks had evolved into something that would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage that the bomb squad possessed. And Sarah Martinez, the quiet civilian contractor, who had been viewed with skepticism just hours earlier, was about to discover that her moment of truth had arrived sooner than anyone could have anticipated. The command post fell into tense silence as Officer Chang's voice crackled through the radio with her detailed assessment of the bank device. Sarah found herself leaning forward, unconsciously holding her breath as the technical description unfolded. The explosive device was unlike anything the Metropolitan Police had encountered before, its construction suggesting a level of sophistication that bordered on military-grade engineering. Through her headset, Sarah could hear the strain in Chang's voice as she described the device's multiple trigger mechanisms. There were at least 3 separate activation systems visible from her initial examination, each designed to defeat standard disarming procedures. The primary trigger appeared to be connected to a motion sensor that would detonate the device if it was moved more than a few millimeters in any direction. A secondary system involved a complex timing mechanism with multiple redundant circuits, while a third layer consisted of what appeared to be a tamper detection system that would trigger an immediate explosion if any of the device's external panels were disturbed. Detective Thompson stood hunched over the communication console, his weathered face reflecting the gravity of the situation. Around him, federal agents and technical specialists studied computer screens displaying real-time data from sensors positioned near each of the 3 devices. The information painted a troubling picture of coordinated sophistication that suggested the work of highly trained professionals rather than amateur terrorists. Sarah absorbed every detail of the technical reports, her mind automatically beginning to process the information in the same systematic way she had approached complex mechanical problems throughout her career. The device descriptions triggered memories of similar systems she had examined during her years at the defense contractor, components that had been designed for entirely different purposes, but shared certain fundamental characteristics with what the officers were describing. The radio erupted with urgent chatter as Officer Rodriguez reported from the parking garage location. His device presented an entirely different set of challenges, incorporating what appeared to be a pressure-sensitive trigger system that would activate if the weight distribution around the device changed significantly. The positioning near the Building structural supports meant that even a small explosion could trigger a catastrophic collapse, multiplying the potential casualties far beyond the immediate blast zone. Sarah found herself visualizing the three-dimensional layout of the parking garage based on Rodriguez's descriptions. Her experience analyzing structural stress patterns and failure points gave her insights into how the device's placement had been calculated to maximize damage. The bomb makers had clearly studied the building's architectural plans and chosen their location with deadly precision. The third team, led by Sergeant Williams at the subway station, faced perhaps the most complex scenario of all. The device in the underground transit hub was connected to what appeared to be the station's electrical systems, creating the possibility that any attempt to disarm it might trigger a citywide power grid failure. The confined space and the presence of critical infrastructure made the operation exponentially more dangerous than a typical bomb disposal. As the reports continued to flow in, Sarah noticed patterns in the device constructions that the field officers might not be seeing from their individual perspectives. Each bomb incorporated elements that suggested they were designed by the same person or team, but with deliberate variations that would require different disarming approaches. It was as if the bomb makers had specifically wanted to test the full range of the squad's capabilities simultaneously. Detective Thompson stepped away from the communication console and addressed the assembled specialists. His voice carried the weight of decades of experience as he outlined the unprecedented nature of the threat they were facing. The coordination required to disarm all three devices within the time constraints would push every member of the team beyond their normal operational limits. Sarah listened as Thompson explained the tactical approach that had been developed for the operation. Each team would work independently, following established protocols while maintaining constant communication with the command post. The goal was to identify the safest possible approach for each device and execute the disarming procedures with minimal risk to the surrounding population. The plan sounded reasonable in theory, but Sarah could see the flaws in the approach from her unique perspective. The devices were clearly designed to be interdependent in some way, their creators having anticipated that law enforcement would treat them as separate threats. The timing mechanisms on all three bombs suggested they were meant to detonate simultaneously, creating a cascade effect that would amplify the destruction across multiple city blocks. Officer Chang's voice returned to the radio with a request for additional technical consultation. The bank device had revealed additional complexity as she had examined it more closely, incorporating elements that didn't match any known bomb designs in the department's databases. The trigger mechanisms appeared to be linked to external signals, possibly including cellular or radio transmissions that could activate the device remotely. Sarah felt a familiar surge of analytical clarity as she processed Chang's description. The combination of motion sensors, timing circuits, and external communication links reminded her of quality control systems she had worked with in her previous job. The fundamental architecture was similar to devices designed to monitor and report on the status of complex machinery, though in this case, the monitoring system had been perverted into a weapon of mass destruction. Detective Thompson noticed Sarah's intense concentration and approached her position near the communication equipment. His expression was skeptical but not dismissive as he asked for her assessment of the situation. The question caught Sarah off guard, as she had expected to remain a passive observer throughout the operation. Sarah hesitated for a moment before responding, aware that her words might influence life and death decisions being made by officers in the field. She explained her observations about the apparent interconnection between the three devices, describing how the timing and communication system suggested a coordinated approach that went beyond simple simultaneous detonation. Thompson listened carefully to her analysis, his expression shifting from skepticism to genuine interest as Sarah outlined her reasoning. Her background in analyzing complex systems gave her a perspective that complemented the tactical expertise of the field officers. and her insights into the device's probable architecture could prove crucial for developing effective countermeasures. The radio crackled with an urgent transmission from Sergeant Williams at the subway station. His examination of the device had revealed what appeared to be a master control system, possibly capable of coordinating the activation of all 3 bombs. The discovery added a new dimension to the threat, suggesting that disabling one device might trigger the automatic detonation of the others. Sarah found herself speaking up without conscious thought, her analytical mind having processed Williams' report and identified a potential solution. She suggested that the master control system might actually represent an opportunity rather than an additional threat, if it could be accessed and reprogrammed rather than simply disabled. The command post fell silent as Sarah's suggestion registered with the assembled specialists. Her proposal ran counter to established bomb disposal protocols, which emphasized isolation and individual treatment of explosive devices. The idea of attempting to reprogram a bomb's control system was so unconventional that it bordered on reckless, yet her reasoning was sound from an engineering perspective. Detective Thompson studied Sarah with new intensity, weighing her civilian contractor status against the obvious depth of her technical knowledge. The situation had moved beyond standard procedures, and the conventional approaches that had served the bomb squad well in the past might not be sufficient for this unprecedented threat. Officer Chang's voice interrupted the tense discussion with a request for immediate guidance. The bank device had begun displaying new warning indicators, suggesting that its timing system was advancing more rapidly than initially calculated. The margin for error was shrinking with each passing minute, and any delay in decision-making could prove fatal for the thousands of people still within the potential blast radius. Sarah realized that this was her moment of truth, the point where her theoretical knowledge would either prove valuable or reveal itself as inadequate for real-world application. She took a deep breath and addressed Detective Thompson directly, outlining a comprehensive approach that would treat the 3 devices as components of a single integrated system rather than independent threats. Her proposal involved accessing the master control system at the subway station first, using it to gather intelligence about the other devices' status and potentially disable their remote activation capabilities. Once the external communication links were severed, each device could be approached using modified techniques that accounted for their interconnected nature. The plan was ambitious and risky, requiring precise coordination between all 3 teams and flawless execution under extreme time pressure. It also relied heavily on Sarah's untested ability to analyze and manipulate complex electronic systems in a life-threatening environment. Thompson's decision to authorize the approach would represent an enormous leap of faith in a civilian contractor who had never been tested under operational conditions. The radio channels filled with technical discussions as the field teams evaluated Sarah's proposal and identified the specific equipment and expertise that would be required for implementation. Officer Chang expressed cautious optimism about the approach, noting that conventional disarming methods were unlikely to succeed, given the device's apparent sophistication and interconnection. Sarah found herself at the center of increasingly complex technical discussions, her insights proving valuable for understanding the device's probable architecture and capabilities. Her background in quality control and failure analysis gave her a unique perspective on how the bomb makers might have designed their systems to defeat standard countermeasures. Detective Thompson made the decision to proceed with Sarah's modified approach, authorizing the teams to begin implementation while maintaining backup plans for conventional disarming procedures. The choice represented a significant departure from established protocols, but the unprecedented nature of the threat demanded equally unprecedented responses. The command post transformed into a coordinated technical operations center as specialists from multiple agencies worked to support the field team's modified approach. Sarah found herself providing real-time consultation as the officers relayed their observations and requested guidance on specific procedures. Officer Chang's team began their approach to the bank device with new equipment, designed to interface with the bomb's electronic systems without triggering its defensive mechanisms. The process required extraordinary precision, as any mistake could result in immediate detonation or the activation of additional security measures. Sarah monitored the operation through multiple communication channels, her mind working to process the constant stream of technical data and identify potential problems before they became critical. The complexity of the coordination required was unlike anything she had experienced in her previous career, yet she found herself adapting to the pressure with surprising effectiveness. The first breakthrough came from Sergeant Williams at the subway station, where his team had successfully accessed the device's external communication interface. The master control system was more sophisticated than anyone had anticipated, incorporating encryption and security protocols that would have been impressive in legitimate commercial applications. Sarah guided Williams through the process of analyzing the control system's architecture, drawing on her experience with similar electronic interfaces to identify potential entry points. The system's complexity was both a challenge and an opportunity, as its sophistication meant that it contained detailed information about all three devices' status and capabilities. As Williams worked to penetrate the control system's security measures, Sarah found herself anticipating potential problems and developing contingency plans for various scenarios. Her ability to think several steps ahead proved invaluable as the operation encountered unexpected complications and required real-time problem-solving. The radio crackled with Officer Rodriguez's report from the parking garage, where his team had discovered additional components that had been concealed during the initial examination. The device was even more complex than originally assessed, incorporating backup systems and redundant triggers that would make conventional disarming extremely dangerous. Sarah analyzed Rodriguez's description and realized that the parking garage device served as a critical node in the overall system, potentially capable of triggering the other devices if its own disarming procedures were not executed perfectly. The interdependence of the three bombs was becoming clearer with each new discovery. Detective Thompson coordinated the operation with calm efficiency, his years of experience allowing him to manage the complex logistics while maintaining focus on the ultimate goal. Sarah watched him work with growing admiration, understanding for the first time the true pressure that bomb squad commanders faced during major operations. The breakthrough came suddenly and without warning. Sergeant Williams announced that he had successfully accessed the master control system and was uploading detailed information about all three devices to the command post. The data stream that followed revealed the full scope of the bomb makers, sophistication, and the true nature of the threat they had created. Sarah studied the technical specifications with fascination and growing alarm. The devices were indeed interconnected, but in ways that were far more complex than anyone had imagined. Each bomb served multiple functions within the overall system, acting simultaneously as an independent weapon and as a component in a larger network designed to maximize destruction and defeat countermeasures. The timing systems were synchronized not just for simultaneous detonation, but for a cascading sequence that would create multiple blast waves designed to bring down several city blocks in a precisely choreographed pattern. The bomb makers had studied the urban landscape with the same attention to detail that Sarah brought to mechanical systems, creating a weapon that was as much an engineering achievement as it was an instrument of terror. Officer Chang reported that her access to the bank device's internal systems had revealed additional trigger mechanisms that had been concealed beneath the primary layers. The bomb was essentially a nested series of explosive devices, each with its own activation system, creating multiple opportunities for catastrophic failure if the disarming procedures were not executed with perfect precision. Sarah found herself providing guidance to all three teams simultaneously, Her ability to visualize complex systems allowing her to coordinate the intricate sequence of procedures required to safely disable the interconnected network. The intellectual challenge was unlike anything she had ever encountered, requiring her to think in multiple dimensions while accounting for the life and death consequences of every decision. The pressure was building as the timing systems indicated that the devices were approaching their programmed detonation sequence. Detective Thompson had authorized the evacuation of additional city blocks as a precautionary measure, but the scale of potential destruction meant that even the expanded safety zone might not be sufficient if the disarming operation failed. Sarah realized that the conventional approach of treating each device independently would almost certainly result in failure. The bomb makers had anticipated standard procedures and had designed their network to defeat them through redundancy and interconnection. Success would require a coordinated approach that recognized the devices as components of a single complex system. Her proposal involved a simultaneous three-pronged assault on the network's control architecture, with each team targeting specific vulnerabilities that she had identified through her analysis of the master control data. The approach was unprecedented and risky, but it represented the only realistic chance of preventing a catastrophe that would devastate the city's financial district. Detective Thompson studied Sarah's proposal with the intensity of someone making a decision that would define his career and potentially determine the fate of thousands of innocent people. The plan required him to place enormous trust in the analytical abilities of a civilian contractor who had never been tested under operational conditions. The radio channels filled with technical discussions as the field teams evaluated the feasibility of Sarah's coordinated approach. Officer Chang expressed confidence in her ability to execute her assigned portion of the procedure, while Rodriguez and Williams confirmed that they could implement their respective components within the required time frame. Sarah found herself at the absolute center of the operation, providing real-time coordination and technical guidance to three separate teams working in high-stress environments. Her ability to maintain situational awareness across multiple complex scenarios while making split-second decisions proved to be exactly the skill set that the unprecedented situation required. The final phase of the operation began with synchronized precision as all three teams initiated their assigned procedures simultaneously. Sarah monitored their progress through multiple communication channels, her mind working at maximum capacity to process the constant stream of technical data and coordinate the intricate sequence of actions required for success. Officer Chang's voice cut through the radio chatter with confirmation that her team had successfully accessed the bank device's primary control system and was beginning the disarmament sequence. Her tone was calm and professional, but Sarah could detect the underlying tension that came from working with high explosives in an enclosed environment. Rodriguez reported similar success from the parking garage, where his team had managed to isolate the device's pressure-sensitive triggers and begin the process of safely removing the explosive components. The confined space and proximity to structural supports made every movement potentially dangerous, requiring extraordinary precision and coordination. Sergeant Williams provided the most critical updates from the subway station, where his team was working to maintain control of the master system while simultaneously disarming the local device. The dual nature of his mission made it the most complex of the three operations, requiring him to balance competing priorities while operating under extreme time pressure. Sarah found herself completely absorbed in the coordination effort, her analytical mind working to anticipate potential problems and provide guidance before critical decision points were reached. The complexity of managing three simultaneous high-stakes operations was unlike anything she had ever experienced, yet she felt a strange sense of clarity and purpose that carried her through the intense pressure. The first major success came from Officer Chang's team, who announced that they had successfully disabled the bank device's primary detonation system and were proceeding to address the backup triggers. The achievement represented a crucial victory. But Sarah knew that the interconnected nature of the device network meant that success at one location could potentially trigger defensive responses at the others. Rodriguez followed with confirmation that his team had made significant progress on the parking garage device, successfully isolating its pressure-sensitive components and beginning the process of neutralizing its explosive potential. The careful work required to avoid triggering the building's structural failure was proceeding according to plan, though the margin for error remained essentially non-existent. The most complex situation remained at the subway station, where Sergeant Williams was working to maintain his precarious control of the master system while his team addressed the local device's multiple layers of protection. The success of the entire operation depended on his ability to prevent the network from activating its defensive protocols while the other teams completed their work. Sarah realized that they were approaching the critical moment when the bomb network's automated systems would begin their final countdown sequence. Her analysis of the control data suggested that they had only minutes remaining before the devices would move beyond the possibility of external intervention and proceed to inevitable detonation. The radio crackled with urgent updates as all 3 teams reported their status and prepared for the final phase of the disarmament operation. Sarah's coordination had brought them to the threshold of success, but the most dangerous moments still lay ahead as they attempted to permanently disable devices that had been designed by experts, specifically to resist exactly the kind of coordinated assault they were attempting. Detective Thompson moved to Sarah's position, his expression reflecting both admiration and concern as he observed her management of the complex operation. Her transformation from uncertain civilian contractor to essential operational coordinator had been remarkable to witness, but the ultimate test of her abilities was still approaching as the teams prepared for their final assault on the explosive network. The moment of truth was arriving, and Sarah Martinez was about to discover whether her analytical mind and technical expertise could translate into success in the highest stakes environment imaginable. The lives of thousands hung in the balance, and her untested abilities were about to face their ultimate examination. The countdown had begun. Sarah watched the synchronized timers on her screen display, less than 8 minutes remaining before the network would initiate its final detonation sequence. The master control system that Sergeant Williams had accessed revealed the true sophistication of the threat they faced. Each device was programmed not just to explode simultaneously, but to create a precisely timed cascade that would amplify the destruction across 7 city blocks. Officer Chang's voice crackled through the radio with growing urgency. The bank device had revealed a hidden layer of protection that activated once the primary systems were disabled. Sarah studied the data streaming from Chang's equipment and realized the bomb makers had anticipated exactly this type of coordinated response. The device was now operating in a defensive mode that would trigger immediate detonation if any unauthorized access was detected in the next phase. Sarah's mind raced through the technical implications. The defensive protocols were more advanced than anything in the department's training manuals. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she accessed the detailed schematics that Williams had extracted from the master system. The architecture was brilliant and terrifying, incorporating adaptive responses that would challenge even the most experienced disposal experts. Detective Thompson leaned over her shoulder, his weathered face reflecting the strain of commanding an operation that had moved far beyond conventional parameters. His decades of experience had taught him to recognize when situations required extraordinary measures, and Sarah's unconventional approach was proving to be their only viable option for preventing catastrophe. The radio erupted with Rodriguez's urgent transmission from the parking garage. His device had also shifted into defensive mode, but with a crucial difference. The proximity sensors that monitored the building's structural integrity were now linked directly to the detonation system. Any movement in the surrounding concrete could trigger an explosion that would bring down the entire structure. Sarah analyzed Rodriguez's data stream and felt her stomach tighten with realization. The bomb makers had studied not just the building's architectural plans, but its dynamic response characteristics under stress. They had positioned their device at the precise point where a relatively small explosion could initiate a progressive collapse that would claim hundreds of lives, even beyond the immediate blast zone. Sergeant Williams reported that the master control system was becoming increasingly unstable as the network's defensive protocols activated. His team was fighting to maintain access while the system actively worked to expel their presence. The electronic warfare taking place in the subway station's confined space was unlike anything in his extensive experience with military ordnance disposal. Sarah realized that conventional thinking would not suffice for the challenge they faced. The bomb network was essentially a hostile artificial intelligence designed to adapt and respond to countermeasures in real time. Success would require her to think like the system's creators, to anticipate their strategies and find weaknesses in their seemingly perfect design. Her breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While studying the interconnection protocols between the three devices, Sarah noticed a pattern in the communication timing that seemed familiar. The data exchange intervals matched specifications she had worked with in her previous job, suggesting that the bomb makers had adapted commercial networking protocols for their deadly purpose. The insight opened new possibilities for intervention. Commercial systems were designed with diagnostic and maintenance access points that might not be obvious to bomb disposal experts, but would be familiar to someone with Sarah's background in quality control and system analysis. If those access points still existed in the modified bomb network, they might provide an alternative route for disabling the devices. Sarah explained her discovery to Detective Thompson, her voice gaining confidence as she outlined the potential approach. The commercial networking protocols included emergency shutdown commands that could override local control systems, exactly the kind of master disable function they needed to safely neutralize the entire network simultaneously. Thompson listened intently as Sarah described the technical procedures required to access the hidden maintenance functions. The approach would require split-second timing and flawless execution across all three locations, but it offered the possibility of completely bypassing the defensive systems that were making conventional disarmament impossible. Officer Chang responded enthusiastically when Sarah explained the new strategy over the radio. Her engineering background allowed her to quickly grasp the implications of using the network's commercial heritage against itself. The bank device's defensive systems were focused on preventing conventional bomb disposal techniques, not on protecting against maintenance protocols that the original designers had built into the underlying architecture. Rodriguez confirmed that his team could implement the required procedures from their position in the parking garage. The confined space that had made conventional approaches so dangerous would actually provide advantages for the high-speed data connections needed to execute the emergency shutdown sequence. His technical specialist had already identified the necessary interface points on their device. Sergeant Williams reported that the master control system included the central coordination functions needed to initiate the network-wide shutdown. His position at the subway station made him the logical choice to execute the primary command sequence while the other teams prepared their local interfaces for the synchronized override attempt. Sarah found herself coordinating the most complex technical operation in the bomb squad's history. Her background in systems analysis and failure prediction was proving invaluable for managing the intricate timing and sequencing required to execute the emergency shutdown before the network's defensive protocols could respond. The procedure required absolute precision. Each team would need to access their device's hidden maintenance interface simultaneously, establish secure data connections, and execute the shutdown command within a window of less than 30 seconds. Any delay or error would trigger the defensive systems and result in immediate detonation of all 3 devices. Detective Thompson authorized the attempt, recognizing that conventional approaches had been exhausted, and that Sarah's innovative strategy represented their only remaining option for preventing a catastrophe. His decision to place the operations. Success in the hands of a civilian contractor would have been unthinkable under normal circumstances, but these were far from normal circumstances. Sarah established communication protocols that would allow her to coordinate the precise timing required for the synchronized shutdown attempt. Her voice became the central point of coordination as 3 separate teams prepared to execute procedures that had never been attempted under operational conditions. Officer Chang reported ready status from the bank location, her team having successfully identified and accessed the device's hidden maintenance interface. The commercial networking hardware buried within the bomb's architecture was responding to standard diagnostic commands, confirming Sarah's analysis of the system's underlying structure. Rodriguez confirmed similar success from the parking garage, where his team had managed to establish the high-speed data connections needed for the emergency shutdown procedure. The device's proximity sensors continued to monitor the building's structural integrity, but they were not designed to detect the maintenance protocols that his team was preparing to execute. Sergeant Williams reported that the master control system was ready to initiate the network-wide shutdown sequence. His position at the central node would allow him to coordinate the simultaneous execution across all 3 devices while maintaining the system access needed to verify successful completion of the procedure. Sarah realized that the next 60 seconds would determine whether her unconventional approach would save thousands of lives or result in the most devastating terrorist attack in the city's history. Her analytical mind had brought them to this moment, but the execution would depend on the skill and courage of officers who had trusted her judgment, despite her lack of operational experience. The countdown timer showed 4 minutes and 30 seconds remaining when Sarah gave the command to begin the final procedure. Her voice cut through the radio chatter with calm authority as she initiated the synchronized sequence that would either neutralize the bomb network or trigger its immediate detonation. Williams executed the primary shutdown command from the subway station, his actions sending encrypted signals through the network's communication links to trigger the emergency protocols buried within each device's commercial architecture. The master control system's displays showed the signals propagating through the network as the shutdown sequence began. Chang and Rodriguez confirmed receipt of the shutdown signals at their respective locations, their teams working with practiced precision to complete the local procedures required to execute the emergency disable functions. The bank and parking garage devices began responding to the maintenance commands, their defensive systems unable to recognize the threat posed by legitimate administrative functions. Sarah monitored the progress through multiple data streams, her mind processing the technical information with the same clarity that had characterized her best work in civilian life. The network's responses matched her predictions as the commercial protocols overrode the military-grade defensive systems that had been grafted onto the underlying architecture. The first device to complete its shutdown sequence was Chang's unit. At the bank, her team reported successful deactivation of all primary and backup detonation systems, with the device's explosive components now isolated from their triggering mechanisms. The threat from the financial district's most vulnerable target had been eliminated. Rodriguez followed seconds later with confirmation that the parking garage device had been successfully neutralized. The complex proximity sensors and structural monitoring systems had been disabled along with the explosive components, removing the threat of building collapse that had made his location the most dangerous of the 3 sites. Sergeant Williams provided the crucial final confirmation from the subway station. The master control system had accepted the shutdown commands and verified the successful deactivation of all network components. The coordinated terrorist attack that could have devastated the city's core had been prevented through Sarah's innovative Application of commercial networking protocols to military-grade explosive devices. The command post erupted in controlled celebration as the successful completion of the operation was confirmed. Sarah felt a wave of relief and exhaustion as the tension that had sustained her through the crisis finally began to dissipate. Her untested theories had been validated under the most extreme circumstances imaginable, proving that unconventional thinking could succeed where traditional approaches had failed. Detective Thompson approached Sarah with an expression that mixed admiration, gratitude, and amazement. Her transformation from uncertain civilian contractor to essential operational coordinator had been remarkable to witness. But her contribution to preventing a major catastrophe would establish her reputation within the bomb disposal community for years to come. Officer Chang's voice returned to the radio with a request for Sarah to join her team at the bank location. The successful shutdown had revealed additional technical information about the bomb network's construction that would be crucial for the investigation into its origins. Sarah's expertise in analyzing complex systems would be essential for understanding how such sophisticated devices had been created and deployed. Sarah gathered her equipment and prepared to leave the command post for her first direct examination of the devices she had helped to neutralize. Her role was evolving from observer to active participant in ways she had never anticipated when she first walked into the bomb squad's headquarters that morning. The transition from theoretical analysis to hands-on investigation represented another milestone in Sarah's unexpected journey from quality control inspector to bomb disposal expert. Her success in coordinating the emergency shutdown had proven her analytical abilities under pressure, but the detailed forensic work that lay ahead would test different aspects of her technical knowledge and problem-solving skills. Detective Thompson assigned a security detail to accompany Sarah to the device locations, recognizing that her insights would be crucial for understanding the full scope of the threat they had faced. Her civilian contractor status required special protocols for access to the actual explosive devices, but her essential role in the successful operation had earned her unprecedented access to sensitive investigative procedures. The forensic examination would reveal the true sophistication of the bomb network and provide crucial intelligence about the individuals or organizations responsible for creating such an advanced terrorist weapon. Sarah's unique perspective on the device's commercial networking components would be essential for tracing their origins and preventing similar attacks in the future. As Sarah prepared to leave the command post, she reflected on the morning's extraordinary events. Her quiet expertise had been tested under the most extreme circumstances and had proven capable of making the difference between catastrophe and successful resolution. The bomb squad's willingness to embrace unconventional approaches had saved countless lives and established new precedents for dealing with sophisticated terrorist threats. The investigation that would follow would likely take months to complete. But Sarah's role in the bomb disposal community had been permanently established through her performance during the crisis. Her journey from uncertain outsider to recognized expert had been completed in a matter of hours under circumstances that would have challenged the most experienced professionals. The devices were silent now, their deadly potential neutralized. Through the application of analytical thinking and technical expertise that had emerged from an unexpected source, Sarah Martinez had proven that expertise could take many forms, and that the most effective solutions sometimes came from those who approached problems with fresh perspectives and unconventional backgrounds. The forensic examination at the bank revealed details that exceeded even Sarah's expectations about the sophistication of the neutralized devices. Officer Chang carefully documented each component while Sarah analyzed the internal architecture that had made the emergency shutdown possible. The commercial networking hardware was seamlessly integrated with military-grade explosive components, creating a hybrid system that represented a new evolution in terrorist weaponry. Sarah knelt beside the disarmed device, her trained eye identifying components that would have been invisible to conventional bomb disposal analysis. The quality of the construction was remarkable, with precision engineering that rivaled anything she had encountered in legitimate defense contracting. Whoever had created these devices possessed both advanced technical knowledge and access to restricted materials that suggested connections to state-level resources. Detective Thompson arrived at the bank location accompanied by federal agents, whose presence indicated that the investigation had already escalated to the highest levels of law enforcement. Sarah found herself at the center of intense interest as officials from multiple agencies sought to understand how a civilian contractor had succeeded where traditional approaches might have failed. Agent Jennifer Walsh from the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Unit approached Sarah with questions that revealed the broader implications of the morning's events. The successful neutralization of such an advanced bomb network had prevented not just immediate casualties, but had also preserved crucial evidence about terrorist capabilities that intelligence agencies had only theorized about until now. Sarah explained her analysis of the device's commercial networking components, describing how the bomb makers had adapted civilian technologies for their deadly purpose. Her insights into the system architecture provided investigators with new avenues for tracing the origins of both the hardware and the expertise required to create such sophisticated weapons. The examination revealed that each device contained unique identifying markers embedded within its commercial components. Sarah's background in quality control made her particularly adept at recognizing these manufacturing signatures, which could provide crucial leads for identifying the suppliers and distributors who had unknowingly contributed to the terrorist network. Officer Chang worked alongside Sarah to document the disarmament procedures that had proven successful, creating detailed records that would become part of the bomb squad's training protocols for future operations. The unconventional approach that Sarah had developed under pressure would need to be formalized and taught to other specialists who might face similar threats. The parking garage examination revealed additional evidence about the coordinated nature of the attack. Rodriguez guided Sarah through the structural analysis that had made his location so dangerous, showing how the bomb makers had calculated the precise placement needed to trigger a building collapse. The level of engineering expertise required for such calculations suggested professional training in demolition or structural engineering. Sarah studied the device's proximity sensors and realized they had been calibrated specifically for the Feuerungswehr parking garage's concrete composition and structural characteristics. The bomb makers had conducted detailed reconnaissance of their target locations, gathering technical information that would have required weeks of careful observation and measurement. Agent Walsh accompanied Sarah and Rodriguez as they examined the supporting evidence that revealed the scope of the pre-operational surveillance. Security camera footage from the surrounding area would need to be analyzed for months preceding the attack, searching for individuals who had spent unusual amounts of time studying the building's structural characteristics. The subway station provided the most revealing evidence about the network's central coordination capabilities. Sergeant Williams demonstrated how the master control system had managed communications between all three devices while maintaining connections to external command authority. The sophistication of the coordination protocols suggested that the attack had been planned and supervised by individuals with extensive experience in military or intelligence operations. Sarah examined the master control hardware and identified components that were typically used in commercial data center applications. The adaptation of enterprise networking equipment for terrorist purposes represented a new threat vector that would require significant changes in how law enforcement agencies monitored and controlled access to sensitive technologies. The investigation revealed that the bomb network had been designed for remote monitoring and control, with communication links that could have allowed the attackers to observe the disposal operation in real time. Sarah's rapid identification and exploitation of the commercial networking Vulnerabilities had prevented the bomb makers from adapting their strategy as the countermeasures were implemented. Detective Thompson assembled the key participants for a comprehensive debriefing that would inform both immediate investigative priorities and long-term tactical developments. Sarah found herself providing detailed technical testimony about the device's construction and the procedures that had enabled their successful neutralization. Agent Walsh questioned Sarah extensively about her background and the thought processes that had led to her innovative approach. The FBI's interest in her analytical methods reflected their recognition that traditional bomb disposal training might need significant updates to address the evolving sophistication of terrorist weapons. The debriefing revealed that Sarah's success had been based on her ability to recognize patterns and relationships that were invisible to specialists trained in conventional bomb disposal techniques. Her civilian background in quality control and systems analysis had provided exactly the perspective needed to identify vulnerabilities in the hybrid military-commercial architecture. Officer Chang spoke enthusiastically about Sarah's coordination of the synchronized shutdown procedure, emphasizing how her real-time technical guidance had enabled the field teams to execute complex procedures under extreme pressure. The level of trust that had developed between Sarah and the operational officers during the crisis would serve as a model for future integration of civilian expertise into tactical operations. Rodriguez described how Sarah's structural analysis had helped his team understand the full implications of their device's placement and the catastrophic consequences that would have resulted from conventional disposal attempts. Her insights into the building's response characteristics had been crucial for developing the approach that prevented both explosion and structural collapse. Sergeant Williams provided detailed testimony about Sarah's role in identifying and exploiting the master control system's vulnerabilities. Her understanding of commercial networking protocols had enabled his team to maintain system access while executing the network-wide shutdown that neutralized all three devices simultaneously. The federal agents took extensive notes as Sarah explained the technical details that had made the emergency shutdown possible. Her analysis would become part of classified threat assessments that would influence national security policies and training programs for years to come. Detective Thompson formally recommended Sarah for immediate inclusion in the bomb squad's operational roster, waiving the traditional training requirements in recognition of her demonstrated expertise under actual field conditions. Her civilian contractor status would be converted to full specialist classification, with access to advanced training and classified threat intelligence. The recommendation process revealed that Sarah's background had been more extensively investigated than she had realized. Her security clearance applications had triggered comprehensive reviews of her work at the defense contractor, revealing that her quality control responsibilities had exposed her to far more sensitive technologies than typical civilian positions. Agent Walsh explained that Sarah's previous work had involved components that were later incorporated into classified weapon systems, giving her indirect exposure to military ordnance design principles that had proven crucial for understanding the terrorist devices. Her analytical skills had been developed through years of examining systems that shared fundamental characteristics with the bomb network. The investigation team requested Sarah's assistance in developing new detection and analysis protocols that could identify similar threats before they reached operational deployment. Her insights into the commercial components that had been adapted for terrorist use would be essential for creating monitoring systems that could track suspicious technology acquisitions. Sarah accepted the expanded role with a mixture of excitement and apprehension, understanding that her life had been permanently changed by the morning's events. Her transition from quality control inspector to bomb disposal specialist represented a career transformation that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. The media attention that followed the successful operation focused significant public interest on the unconventional approaches that had prevented a major Terrorist attack. Sarah found herself representing a new model of expertise that challenged traditional assumptions about the backgrounds and training required for critical public safety roles. Detective Thompson worked to shield Sarah from excessive media exposure while ensuring that her contributions received appropriate recognition within law enforcement and intelligence communities. Her success had implications that extended far beyond the immediate crisis, influencing policies and procedures that would affect national security operations nationwide. The technical analysis that Sarah had pioneered during the crisis was formalized into new training modules that would be distributed to bomb disposal units across the country. Her methods for identifying and exploiting commercial networking vulnerabilities would become standard components of advanced ordnance disposal education. Officer Chang volunteered to work with Sarah in developing the training protocols, recognizing that the integration of civilian technical expertise with operational field experience could significantly enhance the bomb squad's capabilities. Their collaboration would serve as a pilot program for similar partnerships in other specialized law enforcement units. The investigation continued to reveal new aspects of the terrorist network's sophistication and planning. Sarah's ongoing analysis of the neutralized devices provided crucial intelligence about manufacturing processes, supply chains, and technical capabilities that informed broader counter-terrorism efforts. Agent Walsh arranged for Sarah to consult with federal agencies responsible for monitoring and controlling access to dual-use technologies that could be adapted for terrorist purposes. Her expertise in recognizing how commercial components could be modified for weapons applications would be valuable for developing more effective export controls and procurement monitoring systems. The success of the operation established new precedents for civilian participation in tactical law enforcement operations. Sarah's demonstration that specialized technical knowledge could be more valuable than traditional training under certain circumstances would influence recruitment and training policies across multiple agencies. Detective Thompson reflected on how the morning's crisis had challenged his assumptions about expertise and preparation. Sarah's success had proven that effective solutions sometimes emerged from unexpected sources, and that rigid adherence to traditional approaches could limit operational effectiveness when facing novel threats. The bomb squad's willingness to embrace Sarah's unconventional methods and trust her analytical insights had been crucial for the operation's success. The cultural flexibility that allowed experienced officers to accept guidance from a civilian contractor would become a case study in adaptive leadership under pressure. Sarah's transformation from uncertain newcomer to essential team member had been completed in a matter of hours, but the implications would influence her career and the broader law enforcement community for years to come. Her journey proved that expertise could take many forms, and that the most effective solutions often came from those who approached problems with fresh perspectives. The devices that had threatened to devastate the city were now silent exhibits in a federal evidence facility, their deadly potential neutralized through the application of analytical thinking that had emerged from an unexpected source. Sarah Martinez had established herself as a new kind of specialist whose unique background and innovative thinking would reshape how law enforcement agencies approached sophisticated technical threats. Her success had demonstrated that the increasing complexity of terrorist weapons required equally sophisticated countermeasures that combined traditional tactical expertise with cutting-edge analytical capabilities. The integration of civilian technical specialists into operational roles would become a new standard for addressing threats that exceeded the scope of conventional training and experience. The recognition that Sarah received from her colleagues and superiors validated her decision to step outside her comfortable civilian role and embrace the challenges of law enforcement work. Her expertise had found its proper application in protecting public safety, and her analytical skills would continue to serve the community in ways she had never imagined possible. 6 months after the financial district crisis, Sarah Martinez stood before a packed auditorium at the International Conference on Explosive Ordnance Disposal. The audience consisted of bomb disposal experts from 37 countries, their faces reflecting a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as they studied the woman who had revolutionized their field through what many still considered an accident of circumstance. Her presentation began with a detailed technical analysis of the hybrid commercial military architecture that had made the terrorist devices so dangerous. Sarah's slides displayed circuit diagrams and networking protocols with the same precision she had once applied to quality control documentation, but now her audience understood that these technical details represented the difference between catastrophic failure and life-saving success. The questions from the international experts revealed the global implications of her innovations. Representatives from agencies in London, Tokyo, and Berlin described similar devices that had been discovered in their jurisdictions, all incorporating elements of the commercial networking vulnerabilities that Sarah had identified during the crisis. Her analytical methods were already being adapted for use against an emerging generation of sophisticated terrorist weapons. Dr. Elizabeth Hoffmann from Germany's Federal Police approached Sarah after the presentation with evidence photographs from a recently discovered bomb plot in Munich. The devices bore striking similarities to those Sarah had neutralized, suggesting that the techniques she had developed were not just academically interesting, but practically essential for addressing current operational threats. Sarah studied the photographs with the same systematic approach that had served her so well during the original crisis. Her ability to recognize patterns and relationships in complex technical systems had been refined through months of additional training and real-world applications, making her insights even more valuable to the international law enforcement community. The conference networking sessions revealed that Sarah's success had inspired significant changes in recruitment and training practices across multiple agencies. Traditional emphasis on military and law enforcement backgrounds was being supplemented with targeted recruitment of civilian specialists whose technical expertise could complement operational experience. Colonel James Mitchell from the British Army's Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit described how Sarah's methods had been incorporated into their advanced training curriculum. The integration of commercial systems analysis with traditional bomb disposal techniques was producing a new generation of specialists capable of addressing hybrid threats that combine civilian and military technologies. Sarah found herself consulting on cases that arrived from around the world, her expertise in commercial networking protocols making her an essential resource for agencies facing increasingly sophisticated terrorist weapons. The analytical framework she had developed under pressure was proving applicable to a wide range of technical challenges that conventional training had not anticipated. The Metropolitan Police Department had created a new specialized unit around Sarah's unique capabilities, with Detective Thompson serving as operational commander while Sarah provided technical leadership for complex cases involving advanced electronic systems. Their partnership had become a model for integrating civilian expertise with traditional law enforcement structures. Officer Chang had volunteered to serve as Sarah's primary field partner, their collaboration during the original crisis having evolved into a highly effective working relationship. Chang's operational experience complemented Sarah's analytical abilities, creating a team capable of addressing threats that neither could handle independently. The new unit's first major case involved a series of devices discovered in transportation hubs across 3 states. The bombs incorporated artificial intelligence algorithms that could adapt their detonation parameters based on real-time environmental monitoring, representing an evolution beyond even the sophisticated network that Sarah had first encountered. Sarah's analysis revealed that the AI-enhanced devices were using machine learning algorithms originally developed for industrial automation. Her background in quality control systems gave her insights into how the algorithms could be confused or misdirected, providing new approaches for neutralizing weapons that could literally think and adapt in response to countermeasures. The successful resolution of the multi-state case established Sarah's reputation as the leading authority on hybrid commercial military explosive devices. Her methods were being studied and adapted by agencies worldwide, and her influence on the field was beginning to reshape fundamental assumptions about expertise and training requirements. Agent Walsh had transitioned from FBI domestic terrorism work to head a new federal task force focused on emerging technological threats. She recruited Sarah as a primary consultant, recognizing that the rapid evolution of terrorist capabilities required equally rapid adaptation of countermeasures and analytical approaches. The task force's work revealed that terrorist organizations worldwide were systematically studying and adapting commercial technologies for weapons applications. Sarah's ability to identify potential vulnerabilities in legitimate systems before they could be exploited was becoming crucial for preventing attacks rather than just responding to them after deployment. Sarah's role had evolved from reactive analysis to proactive threat assessment, working with technology companies and government agencies to identify and address potential security vulnerabilities in commercial systems before they could be weaponized. Her unique perspective bridged the gap between legitimate industrial applications and potential terrorist adaptations. The training center that had been established around Sarah's methods was producing specialists who combined traditional bomb disposal skills with advanced systems analysis capabilities. The curriculum that she had helped develop was being adopted by law enforcement agencies across North America and Europe, creating a new standard for technical expertise in explosive ordnance disposal. Detective Thompson often reflected on how the crisis that had brought Sarah into their world had fundamentally changed his understanding of expertise and leadership. Her success had taught him that effective solutions could emerge from unexpected sources and that rigid adherence to traditional approaches could limit operational effectiveness when facing novel challenges. The bomb squad's culture had evolved to embrace diverse backgrounds and unconventional thinking, with Sarah's success serving as proof that technical innovation could be more valuable than years of conventional experience when addressing sophisticated threats. The unit's recruitment efforts now actively sought candidates with specialized technical knowledge rather than focusing exclusively on traditional law enforcement backgrounds. Officer Rodriguez had completed additional training in electronic systems analysis, working to develop the kind of hybrid expertise that Sarah represented naturally. His experience during the original crisis had convinced him that the future of bomb disposal would require officers who could think like both tacticians and engineers. Sergeant Williams had been promoted to head the new Technical Analysis Division, where his military background provided operational context for the civilian specialists who were being recruited to address emerging threats. His leadership style had been influenced by watching Sarah's analytical approach succeed under pressure, leading him to emphasize systematic thinking and creative problem-solving in his training programs. The international recognition that Sarah received had extended beyond law enforcement to include academic and industrial communities interested in her innovative approaches to complex systems analysis. Universities were developing programs that combined her analytical methods with traditional engineering curricula, preparing students for careers addressing technological security challenges. Sarah's consulting work had expanded to include major technology companies seeking to understand how their products might be vulnerable to terrorist adaptation. Her ability to identify potential weapons applications in legitimate commercial systems was helping manufacturers develop more secure designs and deployment protocols. The personal transformation that Sarah had undergone was as remarkable as her professional achievements. The quiet quality control inspector who had nervously entered the bomb squad headquarters had evolved into a confident leader whose innovations were influencing global security policies and training standards. Her speaking engagements took her around the world, sharing insights and methods with audiences who recognized that traditional approaches to technical security were no longer sufficient for addressing evolving threats. Sarah's story had become an inspiration for professionals in many fields who possess specialized knowledge that could contribute to public safety and security. The mentorship program that Sarah had established was helping other civilian specialists transition into law enforcement roles, providing guidance and support for individuals whose technical expertise could complement traditional operational training. Her success had opened doors for many others who might have been overlooked by conventional recruitment processes. Detective Thompson's recommendation for Sarah's permanent appointment to senior specialist status had been approved with unprecedented speed, reflecting both her demonstrated capabilities and the recognition that her unique expertise was essential for addressing current and emerging threats. Her civilian contractor status had been replaced with full federal law enforcement credentials and security clearances. The research projects that Sarah was leading were developing new detection and analysis technologies that could identify sophisticated threats before they reached operational deployment. Her insights into how commercial technologies could be adapted for weapons use were informing the development of monitoring systems that could track suspicious technology acquisitions and modifications. Agent Walsh's task force was expanding internationally, with Sarah serving as technical director for operations that addressed global networks of terrorist technical specialists. Her ability to analyze and understand complex technological adaptations was proving crucial for disrupting terrorist research and development efforts before they could produce operational weapons. The legacy of that morning 6 months ago continued to influence law enforcement and security practices around the world. Sarah's demonstration that unconventional thinking and civilian expertise could succeed where traditional approaches failed had established new paradigms for addressing sophisticated technical threats. The devices that had once threatened to devastate the financial district were now components in training scenarios that prepared specialists to address similar threats. Sarah's methods had been formalized into protocols that were taught to bomb disposal experts worldwide, ensuring that her innovations would continue to protect lives long after her direct involvement in operational cases. The transformation of Sarah Martinez from quality control inspector to international security expert represented more than just a personal success story. Her journey had proven that expertise could emerge from unexpected places and that the most effective solutions often came from those who approached problems with fresh perspectives and unconventional backgrounds. The future of explosive ordnance disposal had been permanently changed by her contributions, with emphasis shifting from traditional military approaches to hybrid methods that combine tactical expertise with advanced technical analysis. Sarah's influence would continue to shape the field for generations of specialists who would face increasingly sophisticated threats requiring equally sophisticated countermeasures. Her story had become a testament to the power of analytical thinking and the importance of recognizing and embracing expertise wherever it might be found. The bomb squad that had once viewed her with skepticism now understood that their greatest achievements came from combining diverse perspectives and specialized knowledge in pursuit of their shared mission to protect public safety. The quiet woman who had once doubted her place in the tactical world had become one of its most influential innovators, proving that true expertise transcended traditional boundaries and that the most important qualifications were curiosity, analytical ability, and the courage to think differently when conventional approaches proved insufficient. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.